I'm the executive director of change.org in the UK, which is the world's largest petition platform. And a lot of my work for the last 15 years has been to support grassroots activists. My book is called Do Something, Activism for Everyone, and really is an attempt to try and break this myth that certain people have to be activists, certain people are the ones that should be, you know, shaping the world around us, and trying to encourage everybody to realize that they have the power and the experience to use their voice for good. Does anyone have any questions?
With all kind of social media and kind of fake news and kind of what is reality and what is not reality, how does one, I don't know, accurately decide kind of what to be really passionate and about and kind of go activate for without the risk of kind of basically leading down to kind of blind alley, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah,
I probably worded that wrong, but
no, I think there's a couple of questions in there. One is that there's so many issues in the world, and so how do you pick that thing that you want to campaign about? And I wrote a whole section about this, about how I get that question a lot, and I work at change.org where I'm surrounded by so many issues every day. And I don't think it's right. You can't apply yourself to every issue in the world. You will never get anything done if we don't have those people focusing on the things that they most care passionately about. My advice is think about what makes you angry, what really puts that fire in your belly, like what really pisses you off, because that will give you a sign of where your values are and start leading you down the alley of like, well, where should I put my energy? I think in society, especially in British culture, we tend to kind of think of anger as being a bad thing, but actually it can be a wonderful, amazing emotion if you channel it right. And then the other part you were kind of asking about was like, well, how do you know it's the right thing? Because there's so much misinformation out there. And the thing that I would say to that is that we've never had access to more information. We've got a wealth of world at our fingertips. So do your research. I think one of the things that I actually do campaign and talk about is the fact that we need to actually teach our young people how to do critical thinking, how to read an article and go and ask the right questions. You know, what's not included here? Why is that person speaking? Why haven't they asked the opposition for a quote? You know, who are the publications that you're reading from? And don't be afraid to fail and get things wrong, because we all get things wrong. If we were a bit more embracing of failure and admitting that we were wrong, then maybe we'd actually live in a better society. So it's okay to get things wrong and then to acknowledge that and go, I'm going to fix that.
Over the last year, kind of companies have talked a lot about purpose with Black Lives Matter and various other issues that have happened. Companies have latched onto that, both for themselves as companies, but also for the people within it. From your world and kind of activism, how do companies, corporates, whatever we want to call them, how do they play into it? And are you cynical of them, or do you think they've got an integral part to instigate change?
Yeah, I think that the reality that we're living in is that these companies have power, and I think it's important. Like Black Lives Matter actually saw loads of companies, all of a sudden speaking up and saying, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, making statements. I'm not cynical because I want change. And I think it's important that these companies are speaking up, but then they actually have to be held accountable to the statements they're making. I'm seeing so many companies now create initiatives internally of empowering their Black staff, for example, you know, giving their staff more of a voice. Companies came out with statements about putting people of color on their boards, their C-suite. These are important, but then we need people to hold them accountable. I actually think that often it's the companies that are first at changing, and that's how society can move. Governments and politicians are often so much slower than the companies. When we actually started seeing petitions really take off in the UK, it was the companies that were responsive, the companies that were first to go, okay, we want to listen to you. What do we need to change? The governments tend to be really scared. They don't want to acknowledge that, you know, sometimes they don't want to acknowledge that the internet exists and that there's a lot of people out there online. And so I think there's a lot to learn from companies. I think that they can be thought leaders in this work, and they have a lot of power. And I think that I would want to see them using their power.
Can I just ask a question just about the your thoughts on the Extinction Rebellion and whether or not their approach is a good, valid approach, and it's necessary, or just generally what you
Yeah, my philosophy is that progress or activism is like an orchestra, and you need many different parts. So you've got the big charities, there are the massive trombones and the brass instruments, and then you've got the fiddles and the kind of the grassroots campaigners, and then you've got Extinction Rebellion. I don't know, who are they? Like, they're the percussion maybe. I think you need everything for society to move. I've been at dinners with senior politicians shortly after Extinction Rebellion and Greta and all of that was happening, or maybe even just kind of like in the midst of it all. And there were wives at the table, it was a very informal dinner. And they were seriously talking about what the government needed to do. And they were talking about Extinction Rebellion. They were talking about Greta. So this stuff does make a difference.
No, that's great, Kajal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Thank you for having me.
Interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys. See ya.